Complete freedom of time is when, no matter the kind of work you're doing, you can stop at any time and tend to those things that matter to you. To not have complete freedom of time is when you are stuck in a position that if you stop, there will be consequences that are not worth the risk. But when you have complete freedom of time in your work life, in your social life, in all of it, then you can be anywhere and do everything. The modern society of the U.S. culture, I suppose, however else in other countries, but in the United States anyways, that if people that go out, they work somewhere for someone else, and they get a wage by hours or by another design, either a guaranteed amount for a minimum hours worked, or they have the opportunity to make more, but they have to put more into it. It's not just given to them; they have to work for it. But they get to manage it instead of the company managing it. To have complete freedom of time means that when you don't answer to somebody when you stop your work. You don't go to your boss or something. It means that if you are your own boss, if you are your own superior, if you run your own business, if you are the architect of what you are doing, then you only answer to God. But if you work for somebody else, then you answer to them. You submit to their authority. And that can mean compromising yourself for the sake of your job, for the sake of your employment, to not be at those places that you should be. To have the freedom to just stop, to build up something that is sufficient in of itself, that you don't have to have money working for you instead of you working for money. That is how you get complete freedom of time. But if you are constantly working for money instead of building something to where the money will just come as its own, then you're putting yourself in a position that you are going to have to make compromises. And sometimes those are compromises you won't like. Like if you're not feeling well and you know you should rest, and, well, work. Then you either have to compromise your health or you have to compromise your employment. And then that gets into the whole thing of, like, if you wanted a doctor's note or something, and then you go to the doctor's office and they want you to, if they convince you that you have some ailment, something like that, that's not helping you, that's hurting you. Because now you're speaking death over yourself. Now you go, like, have this note that says you have this disease or you have this condition that, according to Christ, you don't have. To have the freedom to just say, I'm not going to work today. That is complete freedom of time. To not be burdened by the constraints of society wherein it's like, well, have to work. It's not that you shouldn't work, But that if you're going to work, have your work be meaningful to you. Have it amount to something. Some people, they rush into life and they rush into the societal norms of, okay, I got to have a vehicle. I've got to have work to have the vehicle. And then they get the work and they get the vehicle, but now the work is for the vehicle. And yeah, you have a vehicle to do this with, but it's not like you get to use, the vehicle is being used as less than what you could be using it for. To have complete freedom of time is to have the opportunity, the availability to be there whenever your family needs you, whenever they want you. If you wanted to go to your cousin's basketball game, instead of focusing on, oh, well, I gotta work, no, I have complete freedom of time. I'll be there. If your sister is having a recital, I'll be there. Because I have complete freedom of time. I don't have to go and check with somebody at work about, oh, I'm not going to be here this day. No. Because if I work for God, if I run my own business, if I'm working to make it to where money is working for me and like sowing seeds, making something that I don't have to, something that initially is high maintenance, but later on is low maintenance. Instead of going and burning myself out on some things, working for somebody else, where it's not going to stay that way. Eventually, it's just a waste of time to do that. And there's if you have a covenant with God, you're secure. But if you run into making your own business without God involved, you're going to have a hard time. Because God is going to be the answer to how do you resolve this? How do you resolve that? As advice to anyone who would want to have money working for them, who would want to be working for God exclusively as the manager of their own business, I say that make a covenant with God. God's into making covenants. Establish what God will do for you, preferably in big portions, and establish what you will do for God. If all you have to do is show up every day, and God does the rest, that's good. And if you are looking to, the main thing being, don't make something temporary as your permanent solution. Because retirement is not the end goal. Fullness of life is the end goal. And if you go and work somewhere and then wait until you're 60 or something, well, that's a waste of time. Why not get it? Why not be a Bill Gates? Why not be a Jesus Christ who multiplies fish and bread? If we're called to be like God, if we're called to be like Jesus says we are, why not be one of those multi-billionaires or millionaires in your 20s? Why not? Why not be the one owning the banks? Why not be the one managing other people's money instead of them managing it for you? Why not be the top dog? God wants you to be the top dog because it glorifies Him. So be the top dog for God. Don't be nothing. And that doesn't mean don't be a servant. But if you're going to be a servant to God. If I work for somebody else as secondary to working for myself, that is to bless them. That is not about, oh, I have to have this. It's not about making money. It's about, I want to bless them. It's about, I enjoy this kind of work, so I'm going to do it because I enjoy it. Something fun to do. Something, that sort of thing. I went into, I worked with some guys doing remodeling, property restoration from fire and water damage. I didn't do that because I was looking for money. I did that because I enjoy that kind of work. So, if you're going to do something you enjoy, and preferably something where money works for you instead of you working for money.